Okay. Okay, let's get back to the Gemara here. Omamar, we're going over the discussion we discussed. It says if you find the animal, you bring the male as this and the female as that, so we have all kinds of issues. How do we know it's specifically that? So you have to take multiple animals or piles of money to transfer the kedusha, and if it's not, you say, even if it's not, I'm willing to bring a voluntary korban, whether it's a shlomim, whether it's an ola, or a toda. Chatos you can't bring voluntarily. Chatos. That's according to Tosos in Gittin. You see from the Tosos argues. Tosos argues here. Correct?
So, if a person wanted to send a chatos from America to
Correct?
and he said to the messenger, you do the consecration. You be my messenger, you do the consecration.
And consecrate on my behalf.
On my behalf, you do the so I'm not doing consecration.
Correct, correct. It would work.
Take it over there, Lima.
Right, correct. It would work.
Certainly,
But I'll tell you.
But would it work for the one who sent it?
Definitely.
Does he get all the benefits?
Definitely.
Because he didn't do the consecration.
No, it doesn't make a difference, but it was consecrated on his behalf. I'm not able to consecrate a sin offering, chatos, unless there's an obligation. So if I'm not obligated, I'm consecrating on my own behalf. But it's like the concept of zchiyah. But I'm consecrated on his behalf. And he is in need of a chatos, of a sin offering. Therefore, I could consecrate it on his behalf.
So it works all the way around.
So why does Tosa say what he says? Tosa says that the Mishnah is speaking, he sent a bird. Because it says, because the Mishnah says you send a chatos me medinas hayom. The connotation of Mishnah is he's sending the offering already consecrated. The person who's overseas, he sends that chatos with an agent. So Tosa says, but so how does the person who will do? It's going to be lacking in smicha. Smicha cannot be delegated. So Tosa has to say, we're speaking at a bird. The chatos is a chatos of, not a chatos behem. Correct. And he sent that animal as the chatos, and he delegated through an agent. But I'm saying, we see there's an argument because Tosafos says clearly that even though the smicha cannot be done, it doesn't interfere with doing what you have to do. Hillel, not Shmuel. Hillel is okay. But that was for a different reason. No. There's always an issue about ta'achir. From the time you consecrate an animal, it has to be brought within 3 regalim. If you delay it beyond that, you're in violation of lo saseh. Lo sa'achir shamo. You should not delay the payment of your vow. So Hillel, not to even consider putting himself in that position, he would consecrate at the entrance of the Azorah, the entrance of the sanctuary, and then he would give it to the Kohen. That's the way Hillel did it. Midas Chasidus. No, you're not bringing from overseas. You're consecrating. He wouldn't even do it in Yerushalayim. He would do it at the entrance of the sanctuary and give it over immediately to the Kohen. No. No, it's still a problem. Because you're taking the non-consecrated animal to that point. What happens by the time you reach? So he already had to pick it out. But if we're concerned in the interim, it may have a mum. The same issue we're concerned about a mum. You understand what I'm saying? Same problem. From the time you purchased it and you examined it, if there's a time period till you bring it as the korban, there's always a chance it may become blemished. So therefore, so why did he consecrate it at the entrance of the Azorah?
Because to consecrate an animal
There's nothing. So you have to.
Let's say
So you,
sufficient.
no, so you need another animal. You have to.
No, I understand.
So you have to redeem it. You'll have to redeem it.
I'd rather not have that whole process.
But it'll happen. It may be what the redemption. It's the same thing. He brings it. All of a sudden, they realize as a mum. So he has to go back, locate another animal, and come again. Same. He has to go through the same issues.
But I would think that if you consecrate an animal, if I've got two choices, I consecrate this animal, and there's a probability that it may get a wound before I actually finish the procedure.
There's no probability.
Buy an animal, and I only consecrate it at the door.
I understand that, but from the time you bought it till you consecrate it, it could develop a mum.
But there was never a consecration.
But it's irrelevant whether it's consecrated or not.
It might be relevant.
Why is it relevant? Why is it relevant? If it has the mum, you redeem it. Doesn't have the mum, then you sacrifice it. Whether you brought it consecrated or you brought it unconsecrated, you consecrate it at the entrance of the sanctuary.
You're saying it's the same thing?
Same thing, exact same thing.
I would have thought that.
The only difference is for Baal Ta'acher.
Well, I mean, if you're taking something that had a holy status and you're letting it degenerate.
He's not faulted for it. There's not.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not often.
Okay, but I'm telling what the Gemara says. The Gemara doesn't say because it's a question of mum. Not to be in violation of Baal Ta'acher. Okay, without whatever. The Gemara says that in Psochim that you needed. There's a question: how many days? It says Dorshan Hilchas Hachag, Korban Chag Shloshim Yom, 30 days. They start lecturing about the laws of Pesach 30 days before. So says why? One man Yom says 2 weeks, because Gemara says you know how many sheep and how many goats they needed for Korban Pesach. To locate an unblemished goat when you deal with that many people, it's very difficult. So you needed 30 days to locate an animal that was not blemished. That's what it took. That it should not have a mum. The other one says 2 weeks is enough. You don't need 30 days. But once it was chosen, there was no question of developing a mum. The person watched over it. Shouldn't have a mum. Okay, Omamar. The kavos zivchei shlomim. The Mishnah says in Shkolim that if you find an animal that's a female, you bring it as a shlomim. Tomorrow asks Dilma Todu, it's just going over. But it may be a Toda, maybe a thanks offering. The Maisi Toda, the answer is you have to bring a Toda. So you have to bring 2 korbanos, right? You have to bring an animal and as a shlomim, and you have to bring another animal as a Toda. Meaning if it's not okay, so it's voluntary. Vobin lechem, since it's Toda, then it needs 40 loaves of bread. The Maisi Nami lechem, so he brings, it's accompanied with bread. 40 loaves of bread. So Tosas explained, because it has to come with the korban, because there's no such thing as lechem nedova. You can't donate. You can bring a voluntary ola. You can bring a voluntary shlomim. You can't bring voluntary bread. We said nesochem you could, but it's done differently if it's part of the korban or it's brought voluntarily, the nesochem. Right? Whether it goes into the area which it's the drainage system, the corner, or it's put directly onto the fire. Somewhere says dilma chatosi, so chatos is a problem. Chatos cannot be brought as a voluntary korban. Maybe the animal you find is a chatos, because the chatos isn't a keva, it's a female. Chatos bashnoso. A chatos, it has to be a year old, cannot be more. Vishtakach bashtei shonim. It was 2 years old. Vidilma chatos she'over shnoso. So he's asking a good question. Maybe initially it was, he says, since he found the animal that it was 2 years old, it's clear it's not a chatos. He says, no, maybe originally it was a chatos that it was a year old, he lost it, and you only located a year later, right after the year. So maybe it should still be a chatos. Somewhere says, chatos over shnos lo shchiach. That's very rare that you should find it. So we're speaking about something which it's not remote. That's like it's something which it's within the possibility that you could come upon such a thing. No, you don't know. You haven't. It's supposed to die. You can't do anything with it. You can't do anything with it. So, yeah, but so how do you take the animal?
No, I understand. I'm just saying his obligation would be a lot less.
Somewhere says ishtakach bashnosa maig. So what happens if you find an animal? It's a year old. So now we can then with a new problem here, right? Maybe a chatos. Tanya Chananya ben Chachino Yomer Eis Bashnos Chatos. Right? It says if you find a goat which is Bashnosa, a year old, Or less than a year, you bring it as a chatos, Mar says. Chatos sol kadaitoch. How do you bring it as a chatos? Right? Because there's halacha that a chatos shouldn't skapro baleo. A chatos that the owner already was atoned. Or a chatos where the owner died. Whatever it may be, the chatos has to die. So how do you bring it as a chatos? Elo. So what do you do with the chatos? Eiz vashnosa l'chatos. You treat it like a chatos. So it can mean you sacrifice it. L'chatos o kadaitoch. Elo amar bai b'chatos konso gechatos konso l'kipo. You take it, you put it into a kipo, into a room. The meisvei eleo. So Rashi says, what's a kipo? The word kipo means a domed area. Kipo is a dome. So he says, lav dafka. Doesn't have to be a kipo. Oshem a kipo hoisum sukenes l'kach. They had a room specifically designated. V'meishe inosalom zonos. You starve it to death. You don't feed it, it dies. There's no other way to dispose of it. Directly to destroy it, it's a Torah violation. You're not permitted to blemish a consecrated animal. We rule halacha, it's Gemara in Zvach and other locations, that even if an animal is blemished, to add another blemish to it before it's redeemed, it's a Torah violation. It's called mumah chamum. You're not permitted to inflict a mum upon an animal that was consecrated originally for kedushas mizbeach. So what do you mean you can't kill it? So what does it mean? Meso, you put it into this room and you don't feed it and dies on its own. There's no tzar b'lechai.
We have laws that say that if a person is sitting down to eat, he has to feed his animal first. And that's our fault.
So what? Because you should feed your animal first. What about a person only has enough food for himself or as an animal? Does he feed himself first?
No, but that's different. But here, we are actually making this animal suffer.
But
That's
that's
the point. I mean, is there no other solution here?
what do you do with it? It has kedusha, and to leave it, it could be a pitfall. Somebody may benefit. You're not permitted to benefit from it. First of all, there's halachah mishmishina. It says chabisha chatos mesos. The 5 situated chatos, the halal is mesos. They're supposed to die. 5 situations. So the Torah is saying it must die. That's what you must. You're not permitted to be wasteful. But let's say you have the 3 yields of the 3 first yields of a fruit tree. What do you do with it? You burn it. You know, the people starving. You know, you're burning something that has value. Torah says you burn it. You're not permitted to benefit, but you have to burn it. That's what Torah says. Pikuach nefesh would be a different story. Not pikuach nefesh. You have to burn it. The Torah says if you have 5 situations of chatos, the animal must die. The Torah permits you to eat meat. So slaughtering, even though it may be the least painful for an animal, but it's tzar b'lechaim, the animal would prefer not to be slaughtered. It's irrelevant. You have a need. It's not called. We don't reckon with tzar b'lechaim. No, you're not permitted. You're not permitted. Something that's consecrated for the mizbeach can only be slaughtered in the context of the mizbeach. It would be considered shchut echutz. You're not permitted to slaughter something outside of Beis Hamikdash that's been consecrated.
Even though this animal has been decreed,
It must die. Correct. You have to, that's why. This is causality. This is causality.
and it's wrong. But
Right? Correct. Correct. If you're not permitted to inflict a blemish on an animal that's been consecrated, so how are you supposed to slaughter it? There's no greater blemish than cutting its neck.
But you have 2 things here. You have that the Torah Hashem decrees that this animal must die.
Must die. Correct.
It must die. And on the other hand, you've got that I'm not allowed to do any kind of mum on this consecrated animal.
Correct. Okay. Correct.
So, I've got these 2 choices. I've also got something else which says tzar b'lechem.
Tzar b'lechem doesn't even come into the picture. It's like baltashchus. You're not supposed to be wasteful. If you're supposed to dispose of it, that's not wasteful, regardless of its material value. Right? It's not baltashchus. What's? If you remember, we had a tosis. We had a tosis in. It's on this Gemara in Avodah Zarah. That the Gemara says over there that quotes the Mishnah. It says that when a king dies, you're not permitted to benefit his personal effects. So Tosis asks, Tzar b'lechaim. Somewhere says, if you hold Tzar b'lechaim is drabonon, okay, So the Rabbanan could legislate. The initial concept is a rabbinical concept, okay? But if it's Doraisa, how do they permit it? It's a Doraisa because the Torah doesn't say you should. The Torah doesn't say you should remove its hooves that no one should be able to ride on the animal, right? So those has to say something. But if the Torah would see quotes a pasuk that in the time of Yeshua, whatever it is, they did it, and that was covered to show special honor to the king. He says it's not because he asks also. He says baltashchis. I mean, here you're taking a viable horse and you're destroying it. That it can't be used then. It wasn't baltashchis or not. Because wasteful means if it has no value. But if you put it in a context that has value, although it's losing its function, that's not being wasteful. But factually, the animal's suffering, right? And the Torah doesn't prescribe you should kill it. So how do you cut off its hooves? Okay. But over here, where the Torah says it must die. It's not Tsar Balichaim. That's what Torah decrees. It must die. Not how you can't turn a blind eye.
It's so difficult to return.
No, what do you mean so called? No, that's only if the cost involvement is more than the item, where the owner is going to end up with nothing, right? Or your loss as the finder is greater than that, then you forget about it. You pass on it. No relevance to this. No relevance to this. It's Hegdish. It's a whole different level. No, but even if it has a moon, you can't do anything. It's what you're going to redeem it. If it's a chatus, it's a problem. You can't use its kedusha. Not the presumption. Not Rick's presumption. If you take off its kedusha, what kedusha are you transferring? Kedusha which you're not permitted to bring in as a korban.
But that would be the case. Any female under a year
Which is a goat. It's A's. It's a Seiro. Seiro. It would be a kevis or a kivsanat. It's a Seiro. This is the sheep and a goat. There's a difference. The Gemara says in Menachos, what's the difference between, we speak of fleece, right? Fleece is what? Is wool. That's a sheep. A goat has hair, goat's hair. And what said, the Gemara says in Menachos that you find that goats, I'm not an expert in the animals, but the Gemara says most goats are black, not white. Most goats are black. And goats and sheep, they usually go together in the flock. And the goats always lead the flock. They're always at the head of the flock, goats. First, the goats move more quickly. It's like a more agile type animal. But they go to, why? Because it's similar to Bria Sa'olam. Just as Hashem, when He created the world, says, Vaeira, Vayivoker, identically, the goat being black represents night. It goes at the head of the pack. At the end, that's what the Gemara says. Vayerev vayivoker, and then the white comes. The sheep are white. Most fleece is white or gray. That represents day. So then, and it says, how do you differentiate between the Torah says you have to, let's say, for tzitzis, you have to have wool. So wool is what? Is the hair of a sheep, but maybe it's also the hair of a goat. Gemara says no. One is called amra, which is fleece. The other is called hair. It's not called fleece. It's based on its texture. Therefore, goat's hair doesn't qualify. When it says tzemer, tzemer means the wool of a sheep, not the hair of a goat. So we speak of shatnez. Wool and linen, the combination, that's only wool. It's not goat's hair. You're not in violation. It's like camel's hair. Camel's hair also not. Even if you find some other species, or llama's hair, llama. Llama, the texture is also, it's softer. Similar to a sheep. There's no isser. It's specifically the wool of a sheep. That's shatnez. That's tzemer. Tzemer pishtum yachtav is speaking specifically the fleece of a sheep. Cashmere. Cashmere is a type of wool from a sheep. Okay? Tan Rabbanon. So I once said, the Gemara says, the difference between wool, sheep is wool, and a goat is hair. The chatos is what? Sin offering. Seira is sin offering. So we see a goat has relevance to sin. A sheep is not brought as a chatos, only a seira, right? So I once mentioned Rabbeinu Bachin's introduction, parshas Kiseitze. He cites a picture of Reb Lezer that he says that we find that hair is a representation of chet, because before Adam ate of the Eitz Hadas, the human being had no hair. Hair itself is an outgrowth of sin, similar to what the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, that Adam was created without a foreskin. The expression of the Ra, of the Eitz Hadas, expressed itself in the Orla. That was a representation of, that was an indication of the Ra. Identically, Tsar is an indication of the Ra, of the impurity of the Eitz Hadas that exists within the person's body. The Levium, not the Kohanim. So, therefore, that's what I said. So, which animal is brought as a chatos? Not the kizbah, not the female sheep. It's specifically the goat, the female goat, because the goat has, and he says, the goat has hair, and the sheep has fleece. So, what is the representation of hair? That's the representation of chet. The sheep, that's not called hair, that's called fleece. Esav was ish so'ir. Yaakov was ish chalok. So what is again? So what is that? From birth, he was ish so'ir. He was a hairy man. That's an indication. So Rabbeinu Bacchus cites the Pirkei Reb Lezer. It says the gilches rosha. She has to shave the hair of her head. The woman that you took the captive in war. He says why? Because it's part of the purification process. You remove the hair. This is the prerequisite to conversion to become the Jew. If she's agreeable, or he wants to take her as a wife. What? Leper also. So I said, what about a Nazir? A Nazir is called Kodesh. Kodesh Yeh. It says Kodesh Yeh Gadol Pera. He's in a state of sanctity, and that's why he grows the hair. So it's contradictory to what we're saying. So if you take a look in the Gemara in that, he's growing the hair to cut it. The Kedusha expresses itself because he has to have a crop of hair sufficient to cut it, and he burns it under the pot that cooks the Shalmei Nazir. So the value of the growth is to remove it. So I said, the Rambam says in Hilchos Avodas Kochavim that a Jew is not permitted to cut his sideburns. Right? It's called Peos HaRosh. It says, Lo sakifu Roshechem. Not permitted to round off the corners of your head. So Rambam, very, very rarely, it's maybe one of the only locations, the Yad Chazaka, where he gives a philosophical reason why. Similar to the Mor Nevuchim, or similar to the Chinuch, where he gives the Tamei HaMitzos. He says, what's the reason why you're not permitted to round off the corners of your head? He says, because the Komri Avodah Zorah, the priests of idolatry, they would cut their sideburns. You ever see old pictures of the friars? They had just a crop of hair on the head. They had no sideburns. The sideburns were totally cut off. That was all the Komri Avodah Zorah. That's the way they would go. So therefore, it's like you're not permitted to emulate the pagan priests. That's the reason why a Jew has to leave the sideburns. That's what the Rambam says. I mean, it's Gzersa Kosov, but he says the reason, the tam, is because it's similar to what the pagan priests used to do. So what I said was, well, why did they leave the hair on the head? If they're cutting the sideburns, let them remove the hair totally, right? Let them shave their heads like the monks in Nepal or in Tibet, right? They're totally shaven. Why do they even leave the hair? So what I said was, what was the chet of Adam Rishon? Why did Adam sin? God says don't eat. He knew Hashem said don't eat. So we always mention that Rizal because he said, we say Lefum Tzar Agro. If you have such level of clarity, what's the value of a mitzvah? It has much lesser value. He's going to show that despite the difficulty, he will succeed. So he ate the Eitz Hadas to addict himself to evil, to be able to suppress evil. So what is that? God says, but I told you not to eat. I'm not interested. I'm not looking for you to be a greater hero. I just want you to do what I want you to do. So it was his own intellect which caused him to justify eating of the Eitzadas. So what I said, so what's intellect? So to focus and emphasize, what is intellect? That's the head. The sideburn, that's the side, but the head. So the hair is a direct outgrowth of what? A person wanting to do what he wants to do. I'll make my own decision. I have my own way to see it. That's the reason why the hair, and that's the reason why they would cut off the sideburns for that reason. To emphasize, the focus is there on the head. We learned in Mishnah Avodah Zarah that there's a thing called the bluris. What's a bluris? Remember what a bluris is, David? You know, the kids, people take their children to Disney World. They have this little braid, a tiny, they braid it comes out of the head. All the hair is, you know what that is? That's paganism. That is the bluris. That is the bluris. The bluris of ancient days, it's the pigtail of the Chinese. You see the Chinaman with the pigtail? What was exactly? That was the bluris. They would shave their head, because the Mishnah says in Avodah Zarah that a Jewish barber, if a non-Jew comes with this crop of hair for a haircut, you're not permitted to shave the hair within a certain proximity of that. Why? Because what they did, they would grow that crop hair specifically to honor the idol. They would grow it, and they would cut it, and they burned that hair in the presence of the idol. That was the pagan practice. Similar to no, exactly. They would grow it, and they would give that to the what? To the idol. That's what they would do. So therefore, the Mishnah says you have to 2 inches away from that crop of hair. The Jewish barber, is not permitted to shave, because otherwise you're actually, it could be anywhere on the head. Anywhere on the head. It doesn't have to be on the head. So this, what the kids come back, the girls, young girls, where they braid that very small braid, and the rest of it is regular. That's exactly what it was. They did in the islands, with the voodoo, all that. Also, that voodoo, the islands. It's paganism with, even though they're Christians, but it's a mixture of Christianity and paganism. Yeah, by them. Okay. No, the way it's learned, the Rabbi Rabbi says, Shatnez is Semr Pishtim Yachtov, because what did Cain bring as an offering? Pishton. It was a flaxseed plant. And what did Hevel bring? From the fattest of the sheep, which represents wool. The representation of Cain and Hevel were worlds apart. They couldn't coexist. So therefore, the Torah says, you're not permitted to combine wool and linen, because they're 2 representations which cannot coexist. You can't intertwine them. That's what Rabbeinu Bachia, over there, in Parshas Bereshis. Sar. No, Sar. Sar, spelled the same way, with the vowels are different. So'ir is the goat. But Sar, same word. Sin, Ayin, Resh, same. It's called a So'ir because it has Sar. Of course it has hair. It's goat's hair. Torah Rabbanon. Ein lochem mas behemo b'mas mos ma'aser sheni. This is interesting. Now the Torah says that initially, if you have ma'aser sheni, what are you supposed to do with the produce? Take to Yerushalayim to eat in Yerushalayim. Correct? You're not permitted to eat outside Yerushalayim. But if it's too cumbersome and you have too much, it's too difficult. So it says v'tzarta kes b'yodecha. You take a minted coin and you transfer the kedusha of the fruit onto the value of the minted coins. You can't take bills. You can't take a coin that, although it's value-wise, let's say silver bullion, which is equivalent of value, and transfer it, it's not valid. It's not a valid transfer. It has to be kesef tsura. It has to be minted. Okay, it has to be a minted coin, and then transfers. And then you take the coins, and what do you do with it? If it's yours. If it's yours. And then you take to Yerushalayim, what do you do with it? Let's say a person wants to buy a suit. You want to buy a behemoth tameo, a non-kosher species. You're not permitted. You have to use it for something for consumption, to consume. That's what you use the money for, okay? So it says, now, it says you're not permitted to buy an animal with the money which has Kedushas Ma'aser Sheni? That question is why not? Why not? I mean, you're going to take the animal now. You have the money. You have something came up, special animal. You're going to buy that animal. You're going to take the animal and travel to Yerushalayim with the animal. You're not permitted to do it. So you transfer the Kedusha of what? From the money onto the animal. Is it a valid transfer? So Rashi gives two reasons why you're not permitted to do it. Elochem behemoth ma'aser Moshe Sheni, chutz Yerushalayim. This is all outside Yerushalayim. When you get to Yerushalayim, you can take the most ma'aser Sheni and you can buy the animal. But outside Yerushalayim, why? V'tzarta kes biyodecho. Because the only type of conversion transfer you can make outside Yerushalayim, the Kedusha has to be transferred onto a minted coin. An animal is not a coin. Therefore, that's why you're not permitted. The transfer doesn't work. You cannot transfer the Kedusha of Ma'aser Sheni onto the animal. The Ode says something interesting. Let's say let's say the money is worth $1,000, and now you transfer onto an animal $1,000. Just from the trip, the difficulty of the trip, the animal becomes thinner, becomes weakened. So the value is lessened. So to transfer onto a commodity, which ultimately it's going to have less value because of the trip, therefore you're not permitted to do it.
It's always going to be the case, even if you have fruits.
No. Again, there's the fruit itself. Here you have it's on the coin. Take the coin. What are you transferring onto the animal? It's like you're putting it in a situation where you're bringing less. You have the fruit. That the Torah says bring the fruit. It may deteriorate. There may be a certain 100%. And then you should redeem it. But let's say a person doesn't have the means to redeem it. So what are you supposed to do? You have no choice. So if the fruit's not going to arrive, it's going to arrive, it's going to be inedible. So then you don't even bring it. It's understood you don't bring it. Firstly, it's causality. The second thing may be rabbinical. The first is a doraisa. You can only transfer Kedushas Ma'aser Sheni in Yerushalayim onto an animal. That's a doraisa. That's a doraisa. V'tzarta kes biyodecho. The second thing he says, that this is only causality, you're doing the wrong thing. Because ultimately the animal will be weakened by the time you come to Yerushalayim. Okay? So Tosas over here takes issue with Rashi. Okay? So Tosas says, Pirsh Kunches, Chutz Yishlam Nishum Dichsiv, V'tzarta kes biyodecho. The Torah hikpido bekesef tzura. That's the first thing Rashi says. How much you paying attention? Of course, I don't see you have the pen with you. Okay? The Ode, Shema tichochesh b'tor chaderech. It may be weakened as a result of the difficulty of the trip. Lo nihiro, Tosas says it's not acceptable. He disagrees. Why? Dobina kesef tzura hay derech dafke derech chilu. Go liknus dovish eine ochel. Shasorach lazul limkor. He says the halacha that you can only transfer onto a coin, that's only if you transfer on something which is not edible in its own right. But if you take the money, you purchase something edible, that could have to take place even outside Yerushalayim. Because if it's on the coin, you transfer onto something of what's its value, take the coin. But if you transfer onto the food item, which ultimately is the purpose, right, of transfer, because you're going to eat it in Yerushalayim. So now you've done that transfer. It's not limited. No, that's two separate. Rashi offers two reasons, going on the first reason. That the transfer only is effective in Yerushalayim, not outside Yerushalayim. He says it's incorrect. That's only if you transfer onto something that's inedible. Edible, even outside Yerushalayim is not. V'lo bibino kesef tzura v'chanamim goes a kind of quotes a Gemara. Mishay shemos bebavel. We will continue this.